Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm very happy to have you here, guys. In today's video we are going to try out 3 fragrances from Ajmal. It's been a while since I've tried Ajmal fragrances here with you, and these fragrances are not new fragrances that I have. I have these samples for like at least 1.5 years, but I don't know why I never got to do a video on them, even though I've tried them. And I looked at the samples recently and I saw that I have just a little bit of this one left, a little bit of this one left, so I was like, you know what, let me film a video before I use them up completely, and I cannot film a video after that. So the fragrances I want to try out today, I want to try out 2 fragrances from the Oafiya range. To be more specific, I want to try out a fragrance called Oafiya 1, a fragrance called Oafiya 2, and I also want to share my thoughts on a fragrance called QASIDA. These are the fragrances that we will be trying out in today's video. But first of all, what do you think about Ajmal fragrances? Do you enjoy the house? What are your favorite fragrances from them? I feel like my favorite line, not even fragrances but line in general, is the W series, is the Wood series for sure. And from that whole series, I feel like my favorite one is Rosewood from Ajmal. I spoke about that fragrance in a lot of my videos. I find that a classic that's not like too rigid in the term of, that's not too rigid when it comes to classics, you know. It's a classic in the sense that it smells good now, it will smell good in 10 years, the kind of fragrance that if you want something with a Middle Eastern vibe, but it's not too over the top, let's say, there is not too out there, too challenging, the type of fragrance that you can only wear here and there on some special occasions, let's say, I would highly encourage you to try that fragrance. I received amazing feedback as a reference from women and from men as well. I do have some men that tried that fragrance and they came back with amazing feedback. Some even this was so beautiful, you guys, but some even purchased that fragrance for their wives, and they came back and they told me that their wives loved the gift and the fragrance smells beautiful. So yes, let's start with the Oafiya one. Yeah, let's start with this one. Now this fragrance, this is very interesting. This is the kind of fragrance. Now look, I cannot comment on the whole Oafiya range. I know there's like a Oafiya Sport, Oafiya, there are like 4 or 5 fragrances from what I remember. I might completely be wrong. I don't know, but there are more fragrances in this range. I cannot comment on other fragrances, but what I can tell you about these 2 fragrances, both of these fragrances are more artsy style of fragrances, are more creative. They don't smell designer or they don't smell mainstream in any way. So let's see how this one smells like. This fragrance feels so complex and so rich, and every time I smell it, I don't know why, it makes me think of the desert. This fragrance has a very interesting composition. Basically, it opens up in a very vibrant and vivid way, and in a very like bold and extroverted way, I feel like. Not in a sense, when I mean vibrant and vivid, I don't mean like citrusy, that type of vibrancy from the citruses. No, it's almost like it opens up with an explosion of something spicy, something rosy, something woodsy, but each particular note feels very rich and full-bodied. So I feel like because of this aspect, because all of them feel very like rich and full-bodied, it creates an overall fragrance that smells very luxurious and definitely smells very expensive. Yeah, it opens up with lots and lots of saffron. It's the kind of saffron, you know what effect it gives me? It's that effect when you smell a fragrance, it's almost like it exudes heat from within and it smells red. I feel like this is what the saffron here smells like, or this is the type of effect that I get when I smell the saffron. If I were to deconstruct it, like I've mentioned, you have the saffron on one hand that feels very like rich and full-bodied. Then you have the rose accord. Now imagine the rose accord. The rose here definitely is your red rose, but it's not a floral leaning red rose, but it's neither your gourmand leaning red rose. I feel like it's a very realistic, quite, I don't want to say neutral, but neutral in the sense that it doesn't lean gourmand, it doesn't lean fresh, it doesn't lean like overly green, it doesn't go into any of these directions. The rose smells very neutral and natural, but very rich, if you can picture this. Like imagine you were to smell a very scented red rose bouquet, you know? And you have these 2 nuances that sit on a base. I don't know, I'm guessing this has to have sandalwood or something like this, because not only that it feels extremely warm and rich, but it also feels a little bit dusty. You have all these different nuances on the base of something that smells like a rich woody accord. So you have a little bit of everything, but all blended in a very tasteful manner. I feel like all blended in a very elegant manner, all blended in a very luxurious manner. I feel like this fragrance, it gives off a luxury vibe, not the quiet luxury, more like the opulent royal type of luxury, if you know what I mean. I don't know why, but whenever I smell this fragrance, it makes me think of the desert. It legit makes me think of the desert, even though the desert doesn't smell like this, you know. But if you were to, I don't know, like imagine you're in the desert, like under hot beaming sun, so it's very warm, like you can feel the heat everywhere around you, you know. You smell something like slightly dry and dusty, maybe it's the desert sand, something like this, you know, and you were to smell a red rose bouquet in the desert under the hot beaming sun with something slightly dry and dusty. And I feel like as this fragrance starts to develop, also I do start to detect slight green and slightly earthy patchouli facets. You remember how I told you that in the opening this fragrance feels, it legit feels like it exudes heat from within. This is how warm it is. It's not even warm, it feels legit hot. When you smell it, the fragrance feels so warm that it feels hot. Now, I feel like as the fragrance starts to develop and as the patchouli, let's just say, starts to come forward, the overall warm quality of the fragrance starts to tone down to the point where this fragrance goes from exuding heat to feeling slightly cold and earthy. But I feel like this is because of the patchouli and the combo between the patchouli that gives a slight earthy, slightly green, almost a little bit minty like undertone to the fragrance, and the woody accord here that gives a lot of richness, a slight dryness at the same time, because this fragrance definitely feels dry. Yeah, this fragrance legit smells red. It smells so beautiful, you guys. Now, this is the kind of fragrance that it could be someone's signature fragrance because it smells very unique. If you are one who loves fragrances that smell unique, if you are one who loves to smell different to the rest of the world, let's say, this is a fragrance I would encourage you to try. You need to appreciate rose in fragrances to fully appreciate this one, but I don't think this is a rose-centered fragrance in the sense that all the other nuances and facets that I told you, I feel like they are pretty balanced, you know. This is not a rose forward fragrance, for instance, like L'Extase Rose Absolue from Nina Ricci, and all the other notes and accords just playing a little bit in the background to give a slight complexity and a slight something different to the fragrance. No, this you have, like I've said, you have the rose, you have the saffron, you have the woody accord, you have that warm dusty sandalwood, you have that slight patchouli nuance, you know. And as the fragrance starts to open up even more on your skin, I feel like among the rose and among the rose and all the other nuances, I do start to detect a slight floral, something slightly cold, almost something jasmine-like. I don't know if it's jasmine or not, but you do start to detect almost like this cold, slightly floral accord with the rose. But now, like I've said, the fragrance goes more and more cold, slightly more earthy, but don't think earthy like Black Orchid by Tom Ford kind of earthy. No, this is balanced. It's not a safe blind buy, but I feel like the overall ratio between all these nuances, it's very balanced. So it creates a fragrance that doesn't go too much in any of the directions. I feel like, of course, keep in mind this is for my taste and I love these types of notes, you know. If you don't enjoy these kinds of notes, of course you might, let's just say, you might have a different experience with the fragrance. Yeah, beautiful fragrance. Now this is something that I would say it's a perfect unisex fragrance. If you're a woman and you love bold fragrances, you could definitely wear this one. If you're a man and you love bold fragrances, you could definitely wear this one, as long as you love rose. Let's move on to Oafiya 2. This one I also want to apply it on my skin. This one, I feel like both, I can already smell it. Oh my god, this fragrance, I really want to get it in my collection. Now, this is what I mean when I mean a refined fragrance. This is what I mean when I say that Ajmal has fragrances that give you like a niche experience almost. This fragrance. And I just smell the whiffs of the fragrance. I didn't even bring my hand to my nose and I'm all... Wow. This fragrance is amazing, you guys. This fragrance is amazing. Wow. Again, another statement fragrance. This time this actually has coffee, but it's a coffee in a very unique and creative mix, yet wearable. This fragrance definitely feels wearable, even though, let's just say, the overall composition is not your typical day-to-day sweet cappuccino coffee with rose. It's nothing like Intense Cafe, it's nothing like Ristretto Intense Cafe, nothing like Coffee Addict from Theodoros Kalottinis, nothing like Mocha Wood, what's the other one, French coffee. Not in that field. I feel like this is a very spicy take on coffee, and oh my god, it smells so good. I love how this fragrance smells like. I love how this fragrance smells like, and I love the energy that it embodies. It feels very bold and courageous, yet, I don't know, yet refined in a sense. This definitely smells very refined, if you are to ask me. And can I just say, since having these ones, as it got to sit more and more, I feel like the spiciness of the fragrance definitely developed even more to me. I love how this fragrance smells like, oh my god. I love how this fragrance smells like. Okay, so let me finally tell you how it smells now, so I don't lose the opening. So this opens up with a beautiful explosion of cardamom. The cardamom here, it definitely smells like cardamom. I mean, why are you expecting it? It definitely smells like cardamom, but it doesn't smell like a freshly grounded cardamom, in a sense that it doesn't have that fresh green, almost a little bit slightly mentholated type of vibe. It doesn't have that. It smells more like a grounded cardamom, like cardamom powder that got to sit for a little bit, you know, so it lost that overly fresh nuance. It's more of a spicy cardamom scent now, you know, than refreshing fresh. But it opens up. Imagine you were to smell like a coffee with cardamom, but like more cardamom and less coffee, you know. The coffee here feels very earthy, and it feels very like raw in a sense. Yeah, raw. I think raw is the best word. It legit feels like you were to smell like ground coffee, you know, like freshly ground coffee. But imagine you were to get some whiffs of that freshly ground coffee, and you were to get a lot of that spicy and slightly sweet cardamom hint. So it opens up in a very rich, powdery way. Slightly powdery from the coffee, you know, like ground coffee, that type of coffee. I don't feel like it smells like an espresso shot or something like this, you know. And neither does it smell like your cafe latte or like your beverage, like dessert style of coffee. It legit smells like ground coffee mixed with ground cardamom. So it's very powdery. It's almost like, it's so powdery that it feels a little bit dusty almost in the opening, you know, but very concentrated. Like the smell of this fragrance is extremely concentrated. So you have these two nuances, and then in the background you have a slight green undertone. I detect oak moss here, and I think it has listed oak moss, either oak moss, patchouli or vetiver, something like this. I don't remember exactly, but I detect oak moss. And what the oak moss adds here, I feel like it plays very well with the slight earthy undertone that coffee naturally already has, you know. And I feel like it makes the coffee feel very relaxing, very grounding, with a slight green undertone. Now the green accord here, it's dosed to perfection in my opinion, because it doesn't overpower the coffee and it doesn't overpower the cardamom. It's not like an oak moss fragrance with slight coffee facets and cardamom. I feel like this fragrance is an ode in a sense to to ground coffee and to cardamom, but again, ground cardamom, but not freshly ground. I feel like this is the aspect that you need to keep in mind. Usually cardamom, or at least the type of cardamom that I've came across in fragrances, a lot of the times it felt like a freshly ground cardamom, in a sense that it exuded this freshness about it, almost like a slightly refreshing type of fresh spicy hint. Here it's more like powdery. Like I've said, you guys, it feels so powdery that it almost feels a little bit dusty. This is how much powdery nuances I detect in this fragrance. Slightly earthy, slightly with a slight floral accord in the background, but like a whiff of something slightly cold and floral, you know, but like a white floral type of accord, more like an abstract white floral accord. But again, that is behind the coffee and behind the cardamom. This is such a beautiful fragrance. And it did have a little bit of sweetness in the background. I feel like now, as it's starting to develop even more on my skin, I don't get much sweetness, honestly. I get something slightly sweet, slightly sweet, but I wouldn't call this a sweet fragrance. If anything, I feel like this is more a flavored fragrance than sweet, you know. I also detect a slight woody undertone in the fragrance. Like I've mentioned, as it develops, it does go slightly more earthy. However, it never goes so earthy to the point where it feels like you are smelling, I don't know, like a slightly damp soil or anything like this. I feel like if you have this fragrance as a reference and you would like to try something even more raw and even more creative and artistic, I would highly encourage you to sample Coffees from Je Parfum. That fragrance is made around coffee and an oud accord with a lot of balsamic facets. That fragrance is beautiful, but it smells very artistic and borderline not the most wearable fragrance unless you have a taste for those kind of fragrances. Now this one on the other hand, Oafiya too. It's much more wearable. Much more wearable. I could picture this fragrance again as being someone's signature fragrance, like day to day, like if you work in a very, like I don't know, like if you work in an office and you can wear the kind of fragrances that you enjoy. This is the kind of fragrance that on a man I would picture it on a man with a suit, like on a very elegant man on a day-to-day basis, you know. When it comes to a woman, on a woman who has a very developed assertive side to herself, or that likes, let's just say, to tap into that energy here and there, you know, maybe you have your moments when you like to feel like very bold and assertive in a sense, very confident. This fragrance definitely, you need confidence to pull off this fragrance to me. Let's move on to QASIDA. Now this fragrance, I remember it being a beautiful fragrance. The thing about this fragrance, in all honesty, this one on its own, for my taste, it feels a little bit unfinished for my taste, and I want to put emphasis for my taste, because you might have a completely different experience with this fragrance, but for me, like I've said, it feels a little bit unfinished. However, because it feels a little bit unfinished, but at the same time, because it has a very neutral scent profile and a beautifully done scent profile, this is the kind of fragrance that I would recommend you to use if you want to deepen other fragrances without actually deepening them. Basically, if you want to give a slight rich undertone to other fragrances, this is it. Now this one I also want to apply it around my skin, honestly. You know what, I will spray it here on the inside of my arm, but this is beautiful as well. This smells like sweet wood. It legit smells like sweet wood, like a sweet wood that's slightly fumé but very sweet in the whiffs, and with something oud-like there. Yeah, Ajmal has beautiful fragrances, especially if you, let's just say, if you're interested in the brand. Definitely don't start out with the most, I don't know, like, you know, those round bottles like Aurum, like what others? Yeah, those kind of really colorful round bottles. I wouldn't recommend you to start from there. In my opinion, you start wherever you want. I would recommend you to start either with the W series, and these three definitely test them. If you see them online, test them, because I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed, even though maybe it will not be the kind of scent profile that you love. But I'm telling you, if you're a fragrance lover and if you want to explore beautiful scent families and if you want to expand your knowledge, these three are beautiful representation, each particular one for a different category. Now this one, this is so beautiful as well. Ajmal, what are you doing to my budget? Yeah. So this smells like sweet wood, like sweet, dry, rich piece of wood with leather. But the leather, it's more like a suede accord and it's more in the background. But the overall fragrance, it feels very heavy from the beginning. This starts off the heaviest, the richest, the strongest, the least sweet, and as it develops, it will go slightly not softer, like strength-wise, softer like notes-wise, and it will get slightly more sweeter, slightly more almost like a little bit creamy fumé type of smell. But yeah, this opens up with a woody accord, the type of woody accord. Imagine, have you tried Campfire from Paris Corner? Do you know that type of woody accord that feels slightly fumé, but at the same time it's almost like you infused the wood with something sweet? So when you slightly burn it, not only that it exudes a soft fumé-like effect, but it also exudes sweetness. Yeah, this is the type of accord that you have here in the opening, with a rich suede accord right behind the woody accord, and with something spicy. I don't know why I detect ginger when I smell it, like powdered ginger, not the refreshing style of ginger. And why I said that, to me it felt a little bit unfinished, or maybe it was not the best choice of words. What I want to say about this fragrance is that it could be a beautiful base to layer with other fragrances. If you have in your collection this fragrance, and if you have Vanilla 28 from Kayali, or if you have 28 flavors from Rogue Perfumes, or if you have Madar Dahab for Rimin from Junaid Perfumes. I talk so much about Junaid Perfumes, but I love that brand. I love that brand. If you have these fragrances, like this rich, decadent, vanillic fragrances, not very faint like Eau de Toilette, more like a rich, full-bodied vanilla. Also, if you have Vanilla Royal Sugared Patchouli, these are the kind of fragrances that would pair amazing with this fragrance. Anything that's a slight fume type of vanilla, or of course Ajaya Gold if you have Chef Herbaha from Parfumane, these kind of fragrances, you know. Yeah, this is, I don't want to say that it's a linear fragrance because it does change, but it doesn't go through like a crazy development, you know. I feel like none of these three fragrances go through a crazy development. But honestly, I'm not mad about it because I like how they smell from the first moment I spray them on my skin, and I'm happy that the changes are subtle, because to me, if this would have gone if this would have gone through like crazy developments, in a sense, they would have lost the thing that makes them emblematic for that specific scent family that each of these are in, if you know what I mean. Think, you know, like a wood, like a very dry wood accord infused with a little bit of vanilla essence, then you burn it a little bit, and with a slight suede accord. The suede does have a slight funk to it, but it's a funk that comes from leather, but it's not the leather or like more the suede accord. It doesn't feel like a freshly dyed suede or freshly dyed leather, you know. It doesn't have that type of like, not even inky, but that quality, you know, like a freshly dyed leather or suede. It has more like a suede that stood too close to the fire, so now it smells a little bit smoky ashy, even though the fragrance itself, it's not overly smoky ashy. It's more like fume, you know, like sweet and fume. And spicy. I don't know why I detect something spicy. Look, I haven't looked up the notes for this fragrance in ages, but from what I remember, when I was trying this fragrance and I looked up the notes, to me, the notes break down. It smelled completely different than to how I was perceiving the fragrance myself. So don't buy this fragrance just based on the notes. Of course, if you have the possibility, sample it, like I always say, but don't buy this fragrance based on the notes, because if you are buying it slowly based on the notes, you might be disappointed. However, if you enjoy fragrances with a rich, slightly woodsy, slightly fume, slightly sweet and decadent aura, try this fragrance. Now, performance-wise, I don't remember this fragrance performing like crazy, honestly. Perhaps 5 hours on my skin tops. But if I were to have this fragrance, honestly, I would rarely wear it on its own, because to me, to my taste, it needs a topper. It needs a little bit more of something vanillic or a little bit more of something spicy. Oh my god, this fragrance would layer so well with Noir Extreme or Noir Feminine from Tom Ford. They would layer amazing, like anything sweet and spicy, or maybe sweet, spicy and lactonic. It would be a match made in heaven. Also with Nebras, this fragrance I think would layer amazing. I feel like this scent profile in general would layer very well, like I've said, with vanillas, with sweet and spicy fragrances. But I feel like the key, or with sweet, spicy and lactonic fragrances, or with sweet lactonic fragrances. But I feel like the key is again to for the spices, if you want to layer it with something spicy, keep it for sweet and spicy fragrances. Sharp spices or like green spices, I don't think they would pair that well. To my nose, of course, you are free to do whatever you want, you know. All 3 fragrances are so beautiful, you guys. I'm looking at them now. But if I were to tell you which is my favorite, this one, Oafiya 2. Oafiya 2 stole my heart. And this is the kind of fragrance that you can wear with your partner. But please, again, I want to emphasize this, you guys, just because I love it, test it. Please test it, because even though I don't find it challenging at all, but keep in mind, I love spices, I love the smell of cardamom, I love the smell of coffee, I love the smell of oak moss, and I love a slight earthy undertone to these, you know, to all these nuances. So maybe this is why I find it so easy to wear. But you know what? If you wanted to purchase a fragrance that you could wear it perhaps with your partner, something like this, like you could share it with your partner, this is the fragrance. Honestly, this smells so beautiful on both men and women, and it just brings out this sophisticated, like subtle, royal elegance, something subtle but very elevated and beautiful and expensive smelling. So yeah, this is definitely the fragrance that stole my heart. As a reference, I bought them from Rada Perfumes, but they don't sell samples separately anymore. They used to. Back in the day they used to, but now they don't. But yeah, if I know any place that sells samples of these fragrances, I will link it in the comment section. So this is everything I wanted to tell you. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts on the fragrances if you've tried any of the 3. Also, if you have any recommendations from Ajmal, leave them down below, because it's a brand that I loved Ever since I discovered Rosewood, I've tried lots of their fragrances, and it's a brand that I resonate a lot with the way they do their fragrances. I can't say that it's my favorite brand anymore. I feel like Junaid Perfumes, yeah, I feel like I have a special connection with that brand, but it's still a brand that I am really interested in trying out more of their fragrances. Also, let me know what is your favorite fragrance from Ajmal, if you've tried any. Or perhaps if you haven't tried, what are some fragrances from Ajmal that you would love to try? I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like it. Feel free to follow me on Instagram if you want. Here is my handle. But yes, I will see you in my next video. But until then, thank you so much for watching, you guys. And I want to wish you an amazing day wherever you are. Bye, guys.